Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the Beauty and the Beast Work in Progress cut from 1991. Although there are various director's cuts and special editions and different cuts of films, most of them aren't really important in terms of film history beyond having a different version the director or the producer was really into, or making another version so you will pay more money for a movie you already own. And sometimes the results can be quite interesting, sometimes they can be quite stupid. But the Beauty and the Beast Work in Progress cut might be one of the most interesting special edition cuts ever made, and probably one of the more important special edition cuts ever made as well. The Beauty and the Beast Work in Progress cut is often cited as one of the major reasons that the film Beauty and the Beast eventually got an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, being the only hand-drawn animated film ever nominated for Best Picture, and actually the only Disney animated film ever nominated for Best Picture, as the only other two are Pixar films. And it was kind of a really big deal at the time. It was something no animation studio has ever done. Work in progress cuts traditionally are something you do for indie films as kind of like a proof to investors to be like, this is what it is so far, just so you know what we're doing. Traditionally, major films don't do this, but Beauty and the Beast did in 1991 at the New York Film Festival, specifically on September 29th, 1991. And that's pretty rare for not only an animated film at that time to play at a film festival, particularly a major Hollywood one, and especially a Disney film, which they didn't really play at film festivals, especially at that time, really ever. Maybe at a few Cannes film festivals, which Beauty and the Beast later did in the 1992 Cannes Film Festival, but that was like after the Oscars and all that other stuff, so it's like, that's kind of not as cool, to be honest. And it wasn't the Work in Progress cut, or at least to my understanding. But the Beauty and the Beast Work in Progress cut went over very, very well and got a 10-minute standing ovation, mostly because it let people in on the animation process. 70% of the film was finished, but the other 30% was filled in with storyboards and rougher animation and concept drawings and things like that. So it gave you kind of a whole new appreciation for animated feature film that we really hadn't been let into up until that point. You had no DVD special features letting you in, showing you, rougher animation. You might get a making of on TV occasionally, but nothing like an actual cut that wasn't fully finished. And it's actually probably one of the more interesting films to watch because it really lets you in on how many different styles and ideas they go through in an animated film before they finally finish it, specifically a Disney animated film. It gives you kind of probably the closest to really go in depth to an animated film that Disney's ever done, minus like the documentary The Sweatbox, which I guess they're not as cool with as they are with this cut, other than like The Reluctant Dragon or, books or things. But in terms of cuts, this is the only kind of special cut that isn't like, adding a stupid scene or something. And there are various different cuts of Beauty and the Beast. There's the theatrical cut, there's the special edition cut with an added song, which I refuse to watch. There's a sing-along cut, and then there's this one. And I've always really loved this cut because there's not a lot of weirder cuts of animated films. Certainly there's The Thief and the Cobbler, but this is probably the most commercially available one, and it's probably the only one that I can think of from a major studio. I mean, most major studio films don't do this. In fact, the only other major studio film that did a work in progress cut at a film festival that I can find, and specifically the New York Film Festival, I don't have a fetish towards the New York Film Festival. It was actually the only other major film I could find that did a work in progress cut, and it happened to be at the New York Film Festival. Almost 20-year anniversary of this work in progress cut, coincidentally, is Hugo did a work in progress cut at the New York Film Festival in 2011. Ow, wow, that is the 20-year anniversary. Was it 2012? No, yeah, it's 2011. Wow, I didn't even, that literally just now while I'm saying it, that hit me. So I don't think that was on purpose. I think that was just coincidental, but hell of a coincidence actually. And it helped Hugo get a Best Picture, which kind of makes me wonder why more people haven't done that. I did mention this in the episode of Deep Focus, my video essay series called Did Disney Hold Back the Animated Feature? And I mentioned this in there that they never did this again. I've always wondered that, and I could never find a reason why that didn't happen with Aladdin or Lion King or any other Disney film after this, which did not get serious awards consideration as far as Beauty and the Beast did. I find this cut really interesting to see from the rough cuts, to see the various different concept arts and different styles going on throughout this film. Now, I will say, watching this film, I find a little interesting because I find it very beautiful in the way I've never seen an animated film like this. And I've seen it a couple times, and each time I'm kind of overwhelmed by like, wow, this is like an amazing different cut of a pretty important animated film. And it's amazing that this exists, and you can just find it. It's on most DVDs and things like that. And I'll get to the release, more of the release stuff later. But it's beautiful going through these different styles, and it has a kind of interesting flow about it. It's kind of almost a completely different movie. I would never recommend seeing this one first, although I guess those people who who saw it at the New York Film Festival, and I think it played maybe another time before that for the Oscar consideration stuff. They did, and they certainly really liked it, but I find it a little harder narratively. I'm more interested in the animation itself than the story. Not that Beauty and the Beast has a weaker story, I'm making some comment on their story. It's just so unique and different, and it's not done in a narrative way. Clearly this is just like, hey, this is like sort of what we had done. And you see certain things, certain sequences you see parts of, and parts suddenly they'll cut to a storyboard or rougher animation, then they'll cut back to finish, and they'll cut back and forth. And most of it is finished. I think it might be actually 60-40, but they said 70-30. I didn't count, so let's just say 70-30, but it felt 60-40 to me at least. And it gave this interesting flow to it, but it's just more to appreciate the animation. If you are someone who's like, I would like to get into animation, or I'm really interested in animation history, this is a cut that I would say you have to see. This is one of those things that you need to see. This is part of your film education. I think this should be a part of anyone who wants to get into filmmaking or has any interest in animation, but I think in filmmaking in general, because it's a cut that just takes a film that is so widely known. I mean, Beauty and the Beast is a major movie. It's a majorly important film because of the Best Picture thing, but also because it was such a huge success. It's a huge part of the Disney Renaissance and 90s cinema, and the fact that they have this weirder cut that examines the animation process within it, I think is pretty fucking amazing. And I think it shows Disney's willingness to go, well, look, this was an important thing. It got us this far. Let's actually release it. It's actually really cool. It's one of their cooler things they've ever done to release it so publicly. And originally it was on VHS by itself. Then it was on Laserdisc. And I've read on a few places, and I'm not like a what was released on Laserdisc or not expert, that this was released on Laserdisc either first before the official theatrical film, or it was the only release on Laserdisc. They didn't release the theatrical cut. Laserdisc was such a niche market, you know, who knows. And you had to kind of be on the know for it. Animation fans would seek it out, and apparently it was at certain Disney stores and stuff, so it wasn't like impossible, like you could find it. They wouldn't have as many copies as Beauty and the Beast because that would be a little crazy, but they had it. Starting with DVD, it would say we have all these versions of the film, and that was one of the versions. Some people have complained they can't find it on DVDs, but it's kind of like the Clitoris or something. If you know where it is, it's really easy to find, but if you don't, you might stumble around a little bit. It's on the DVD I have, but apparently on certain Blu-rays it's like a picture-in-picture thing, and there's even versions of it that have changed. Like apparently the Laserdisc version is actually the best version, which I've seen that version and I like that version. I did notice the contrast on the DVD version. This is getting real dorky, but the contrast on the DVD version I don't think is as strong, so you don't notice as many details. You might want to just mess with the contrast on your TV in that regard, but they should have done that in the restoration, and it looks a little rougher around the edges than the Laserdisc version. If you can get the older DVD version, which is what I have from I think about 2010 or whenever the last DVD release was, that is the version I have, and I've seen the work in progress cut, and if you have that version you can watch it, and I highly recommend it because it's a really beautiful peek into Disney's feature animation that you don't usually get other than like the Sweatbox. But in this terms, you get the drawings, you see the different kind of ideas and scopes of animation and see the level of detail, and you can actually look at it in ways that if you ever like just seeing pencil tests or rough animation or storyboards or just proof of concept things, it's kind of like watching a moving art of book is what the work in progress cut is. And I've always told people to watch this because I'm a big fan of it and I love watching it every couple of years. It is incredibly beautiful. Beauty and the Beast is a classic animated film, and this isn't a review about that, sorry. This is a review about a particular cut of it that ended up getting it a Best Picture nomination. And it's never really been played, and I think it's only gotten played like a single digit amount of times in theaters. Your bouncing ball sing-along versions of your Disney movies, like whatever, man. But like this is like actually cool for animation fans. It makes you take animation more seriously, and certainly take it more seriously as an art form. And I think if more people watch this cut who are film fans and animation fans, they would go, wow, like look at the amount of care and detail going into it. Obviously this isn't the exact 1991 cut, although on the DVD one of the producers or something says it is. Apparently in the actual 91 version that was screened, they used a temp score and a lot of different rougher recordings, which they do not do. They do their nicer recordings and stuff. And it honestly feels a little shorter than the theatrical cut because things aren't as smooth and stuff. It has a weird vibe to it in general. It's worth at least one watch, I think, especially if you're into animation. And I know a lot of animation history classes play the work in progress cut over regular Beauty and the Beast. It's very good to just see all the processes you can go through and ideas that can be brought into a film, and it really shows that in a really beautiful, amazing way. It lets you in on something that you never thought you'd be let in on, and seeing the animation process in a kind of more freeform, arty way that you never thought Disney would ever do. I mean, I don't think you'd ever think that they'd do, but I think if you're interested in animation or drawing or the animation process or Disney and the history of Disney, this is a must-see. Find the work in progress cut and go watch it and marvel at Disney animation in a way that just watching a regular Disney film has never let you peek inside. And it's a really amazing process to see an animated film in the work in progress cut. I wish there were other ones of other Disney traditionally animated films. If this is the only one we have, let's appreciate that this is the one we have and how awesome it is to kind of peek inside the vaults and see what really goes on and goes into a Disney animated film while you watch it and see these various styles, pencil tests, proof of concepts, and storyboards and animatics all going throughout it while you watch the animated film as well. It's a really cool experience and I highly recommend it. It's probably one of the few cuts that both educates you and wraps you up in its wonder of its animation at the same time. So if you have seen the Beauty and the Beast work in progress cut and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.